Today on page 180, we go back into the spoiler-verse for a spoiler-filled discussion on the new series of Daredevil Born Again and the third series of Invincible, the latter of which waited until the end of the third season to get into the conflict that it's been building towards since its very first episode. But as we get started and go into the spoiler-verse, it's Ger Leggett here, joined by Kev Keane of Fangclub, who has taken time out of his very, very packed schedule to talk with me because we're just like, we need to talk about all of this. Kev, What show can you think of that took ages to get to the point in the same way Invincible is now?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know if this is controversial or not, but definitely Breaking Bad took me a couple of goes to get into it.
Okay. I have a very
Seasons
similar answer.
season two in particular, I thought was like it was like season one, I think it was only 6 episodes and it was fairly jam-packed and it was good. But season two, it just took so fucking long to get to the end basically. And I just felt like the first time round was a lot of filler. The second time I loved it, but it wasn't until season three Breaking Bad really clicked with me. Um, there was far too much Skylar in season two for my liking, if I'm being
You're
honest.
you're a Skylar hater. Okay. Otherwise known as a misogynist.
At the start, I knew this was coming. At the start, I did appreciate Skylar later, but yeah.
Okay, fair. There was a lot of eggs. There's a lot of sitting around eating eggs at the table, like, and just kind of
Yeah,
going.
and just bad looks, and
I
you're
heard
like,
this
just
was.
let him do his thing.
I
You're still
heard
rooting
this.
for Walter a bit in season two.
I heard this was a gang show, but there's
Yeah,
so much scrambled egg in it. Yeah, it's
yeah.
mad that you said Breaking Bad because the show that came to mind for me, and I want to be clear here. Getting to the point sounds like something that we're like, get to the fucking point, like we're complaining about. I don't actually see this as a bad thing in this show, but it
Mm.
is also very much true. I thought of straight away, and we haven't coordinated this. Better Call Saul, because
Another, yeah, maybe it's a Vince
yeah,
Gilligan thing.
it is, and like because he likes to get you into the whole. I want you to think through every like it's a play along. It's almost interactive where you have to think along with the person and
Yeah.
plan and plot with them. But like once you're in Better Call Saul, if you watch Breaking Bad, you're like, I know this pays off. So like I'm in. I just want to spend time in this world, and even if it's minutia of him just like forging false law documentation in a printers, you're just like, give it to me. You know what I mean? But you cannot say that it's a quick moving show, but it gets to the fucking point and the stakes are there. Like it just, but literally, it's a show. It starts at the thing that it doesn't begin to even. It starts with a storyline, which is a flash forward in a flashback prequel show.
Yeah.
That it doesn't actually start to get to the story until the last series, the very last series. It's like, all right, we'll tell you that story we've been teasing for 5 years of your life.
But
And
when it's paid off the way it pays off, it's just
exactly.
it's
Exactly.
it's I was gonna say pure cinema, but it's television. But like, yeah, you know what I mean?
Pure television is also a good thing
Yeah.
because yeah, cinema. If cinema took 5 years to get to the point, I'd be like, okay, like I've missed out on chunks of my life here. This is ridiculous, but good
MCU.
movie. Yeah. Um, we will talk about Invincible. We're going to get into it. And like I said, like the title implies, we will be having a spoiler-filled discussions today on the likes of Invincible, on Daredevil Born Again. You can use the show notes. We have timing in there. So if you only want to dip in for the Daredevil chat or you want to dip in for the Invincible chat and avoid everything else, don't worry. But before we begin, we're in a very exciting time of year for us because probably the next time we chat, because we get to do one of these shows around once a month or so, a month from now, almost to the day, we will be welcoming back The Last of Us, which is a video game franchise we love. It is a TV show we love. It is the first ever TV show we covered on page 180. It's the reason that I invented this because I'm like, I need an excuse to talk with my mates about Last of Us every week.
Yeah.
There's a lot of kind of Neil Druckmann doing the rounds, building hype for the season. Obviously, for anyone who doesn't know, it debuts April 13th on Sky. He's speaking about the controversy with the slimmed down version of Abby that they've cast in it, and how it'll probably take 3 seasons to tell the full story of the second video game. The second season is only 7 episodes this time. First season was 9. Kev, I want to check in with you. And by the way, we said we'd have a spoiler-filled chat. We're not going to spoil what happens in the game, so we're not going to ruin the season on you. It's just, if you've seen all the episodes of TV that we've discussed here, then yeah, like we won't spoil
Yeah.
the actual Last of Us show. How are you feeling heading into season 2?
Well, I know we said we're not going to do any spoilers, so I'm going to come out clean on this as well. I've only played about halfway through Last of Us Part 2.
Fair.
I've gotten distracted and just life's gotten away, and it's one of those games where like I keep meaning to go back to it and I haven't because I know I'm gonna fucking love it. But at the same time now, when season 2 is kind of crept up, I'm like, do I want that Invincible thing of like not reading the comics and hopefully being just completely surprised and blown away by certain aspects of the show? I haven't even watched the trailers. I'm
Oh,
that
really?
excited for it. I really want to just go in insanely fresh into this season, and it's been really difficult to do. But I loved season 1 so much, and I loved the changes that they did make in season 1. But I've been enjoying Invincible and staying away from the comics, even though it's very tempting to. That's kind of where I'm at with season 2. I'm really, really excited about it. Like you said, this is the first discussion we got to do on page 180. And I adored that. So yeah, I'm excited. I trust Neil Druckmann um to tell a really good episode of or series of TV. And who's the other guy as well from Chernobyl? That's
Craig
right. With
Mazin.
Craig Mazin.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't go wrong with the two of them. You just really can't from the last season. Um and yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I want to go in as blind as possible into this.
Okay. Here's where I'll say I think you should play the game first. Okay. And for anyone who's never played it, I recommend it, because part of the experience of the game, and you get a little bit of this with the first game, is you have to you have to make decisions on the character's behalf. You have to feel how the character feels, and that's part of the experience, because it shapes how you actually feel about the story and about the game, and the changes and the
Mm,
evolutions of you as a person, and how you feel towards the characters and the decisions they make here. Season 2 of The Last of Us, again, not getting into any plot, but it takes huge swings. Now, I don't know if it's going to cover all, it's obviously not going to cover all of it in season 2. And you'll probably be safe. If you've only played halfway, I
that's also what
guess.
I'm thinking is like maybe I'm actually fairly safe with this as well.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to get too far into it, because there's 2 jumping off points I can think of if you're splitting the game
Mm,
into 3 different series of TV. And they've said that they're going to add a lot of the extra content and the kind of twists that they did in season 1 as well, that weren't part of the video game. But I would recommend you play it. Like, don't experience this through the TV show. Play the game. Even people, like, some people are like, I'm not a gamer. And again, look, do you, if you're not into games, you're probably not going to be into it anyway. But like, if you're into games, play it, because part of it is playing it and having to go through the emotions. And there's a different um feeling that you can never replicate when you have to control a character as they make decisions that you may not agree with, or a character that you may go into it loving but then start to feel other directions
mm.
towards, characters you may go into it hating, but then at times you're like, do I actually like this character now? How do I feel about this? What's going to happen? What's going on? How is this twist in my brain? And the game is an extraordinary achievement, because it's about that. It's about empathizing with people that you feel you could have no empathy towards, or people you have all the empathy towards, losing that sympathy and just the unthinkable feeling. And that's what I love about this story. But I'm also nervous about season 2, because the game part 2 started a very toxic discourse.
Yeah.
And I know people who, because of things that happen in it that will become clear, like things that are going to happen in season 2, but then also beyond that too. And I'm worried about that as well, because right now, The Last of Us, even people that would never play games, aren't into games, like my uncle and auntie, for example, they love this show and they'd never be gamers. It wouldn't be their thing. But I get to talk about Last of Us with them, and I'm nervous because there's a lot of people who played the games that just felt so strongly about stuff that happened and swings that season 2 took, or part 2 of the game took, that just never went back to it. I know you're just more a case of just got
Oh, that's it.
distracted.
It's a time thing,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. But like they felt strongly about the story. So I'm nervous about that toxic discourse coming around this show. We've already seen it. People feel strongly about these characters. Like the actress who's playing Abby is getting abuse online because she's not jacked like Abby is, because Abby in the game, and I won't tell you who she is or what she does, but you have to play as her. She's strong. It's almost like playing as Joel, replicating that experience from the first game. And that's not the case, they're saying, with the story that they've chosen here, but there's already that bit of a toxic discourse around this, and I just really love this show and I really don't want to. But also on the plus side, TV allows us to be separated enough from it that maybe the story, I love the story, I think the story and where it ends up and the twists it takes and the ending of it, I think it is almost as good as the first game. It is a masterpiece for me.
Mm.
But you have to go with it and you have to be willing to. Maybe the TV will take us on a different experience and give us more perspectives, or take us on the journey better than the game did, because the game was very much, I'm just going to do this and you can feel how you want to feel. And that's why it pissed people off. But I'm looking forward to discussing it. We're going to have many Last of Us chats, both on the pod and off the pod, over the next few months. And I'm looking forward to being able to,
Yeah.
digest it all with you and kind of on the show as well. But there's excitement levels are 10 out of 10 because I trust this show, but I don't trust toxic fandom not to ruin the experience somewhat on me. That's what makes me nervous.
Would that ruin the experience if there's a ton of it online, is it?
Yeah, it's like, and again, I don't compare it to this in terms of season, but the last season of Game of Thrones, okay?
Yeah.
I got that it wasn't as good as any other, but I still loved the experience and wanted to enjoy the experience of getting to have Game of Thrones week to week, So I could forgive it. And again, some people can't, and I understand that. And I'm not saying my feelings right, your feelings wrong. But that just became a total toxic cesspool of discussion. And discussion about TV is part of why I like it. It's why we have a podcast,
Mm.
what we're doing right now. And when that becomes toxic, it can spoil the content somewhat, because you feel like you have to fight for it, and you're almost constantly in an argument, or you're arguing with yourself and you're going, do I enjoy it? Don't I enjoy it? How do I feel? And you can't just get that fan experience. So that's what has me nervous about it. I think quality wise, it's going to hit. I trust all the people involved. I know the story's great. I love the story, but I also know how the story makes other people feel. And part of me
Yeah.
is really looking forward to that too. Like, I'm really looking forward to seeing some of the things that are going to happen and go, oh shit. Like,
I mean,
you've
I
seen
think
the Red Wedding, but you're not ready for this.
yeah.
Like,
I
I
I
know some
think
of the things.
season one, even as the show took some like kind of definite kind of, like I said, big swings even compared to the game, and like uh, the some of the reaction from that I think was more positive than negative, but there was a ton of negatives to some of those episodes as well of
Yeah.
um some of the fleshing out of characters, I suppose, in season one. I can't see it being a huge amount different to that.
Mm.
I think the fans that love it are going to love it, and the fans that are just going to be dicks are going to be dicks. But um, it's not. I don't think it's going to ruin our kind of experience of it, though. Anyway,
Yeah.
I think we'll yeah, we'll still have a fucking great time chatting about it on the pod. I think as
What
well.
has me what has me slightly optimistic is then you have the people who are never going to play the game or interact with that. And video games in general can veer towards a toxic discourse. I mean,
Mm,
the people that didn't like aspects of season 3 didn't like it because, let's call a spade a spade, a large number of the people that start these toxic conversations are like, oh, you can't have a girl in there, or two gay men. And that's kind of what is driving the toxicity around the discussions. You know what I
yeah.
mean? It's lowest common denominator kind of stuff. Whereas if you look at, say, the reaction to episode 3 of season 1, which is the most provocative choice that they made in season 1 to have this beautiful queer love story, just rewrite an aspect of the game and tell a truly original story for the TV show. A lot of the other people that came in just to the show outweighed that
Yeah.
noise. You know what I mean?
It really did.
And I hope that those people are the people that give the volume and give this story the love it deserves. Because again, I feel like they're going to nail the story. I can't wait to see what new choices they have and new characters they add and new stories or twists they decide to take. And I just hope that that drowns out a lot of the noise, because they're going to, because the same big things are going to happen, and they're going to say, oh, and there's going to be a lot of that. But I just hope that that's allowed in a video game context, maybe with a HBO TV show that everyone now recognizes as incredible. You know, we won't hear that much of that. And it's like, okay, they'll just stick to review bombing it on IMDb, but no one gives a shit about that
No.
anyway. You know what I mean? So yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. It's gonna be really interesting though. I can't
I'm
wait.
excited.
And Andor's at the same time. Wow, wow. Let's talk some Invincible. We touched on this. We did an episode of What You're Watching, and we did a non-spoiler. Actually, no, sorry. We did a spoilery kind of chat after the first 3-episode premiere. And it ended with an incredible, thrilling final 3 episodes. After a kind of hum-ho season 2, which was very stop-start. Literally, they stopped for 2 months in the middle of a short season anyway, which upset people. And it was kind of uneven as well, the story they were telling, because there's a lot going on and they've been away for so long. This flew by this season. But the question I have for you is, when it comes to Invincible, are we now back? Because the last 3 episodes where a lot went on, and we can talk about it with spoilers, but
Yeah.
are you feeling that we're back when it comes to Invincible now?
A million percent we're back. Like this season, the first 3 episodes, and even there's like 2 episodes after that as well, was definitely what we discussed earlier of like, when are we getting to the point? I thought there's a fair amount of filler, but having watched then the last 3 episodes and looking back and all that, is like we needed all of that to get to where we are, and to make some of the big moments in those last 2, 3 episodes really fucking matter. And it just you're kind of like, okay, well, I'm not gonna criticize this anymore because they know what they're doing. The writing's on point now as well. I think the writing this season in particular has been amazing, and then the voice acting as well. Like you're getting Breaking Bad, you're getting Walking Dead, you're getting fucking any prestige TV show. There's someone's popping up in Invincible. Um, and I know the animation got criticized, I think, a bit this season in the earlier episodes. You're like, when you see those last 3, or the last 2, definitely anyway, you're like, oh, that's where the budget went. And I was kind of absolutely fucking worth it for that as well. But when you have such a good cast and it was such a well-written show, the animation, I don't mind it taking a bit of a backseat once they're telling me a really good, compelling story. Um, but like there's throwbacks in this to season 1, to characters in season 1, or even in season 2 that I completely forgot about. And you're like, oh my God, yeah, fuck, these guys. We haven't gone back to them in ages, and they'll just pop up, and you're like, oh bollocks, this is the worst timing. Yeah, we're so fucking back with this show, man. I love it.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. It reminds me of, and look, this is not a coincidence. It reminds me of The Walking Dead in some ways, okay? And peak Walking Dead as well, like when
Yeah,
everyone liked it. But that it does take when it hits, it really fucking hits, you know? Like when it gets to those big episodes where it has to matter, they know how to knock it out of the park. But in the meantime, you do have to sit through some really kind of bland filler, but the filler then matters because of that. But I don't know if they're as good at writing compelling filler, because sometimes, say in a Game of Thrones, like the palace intrigues and the conversations, that'd probably be your favorite bit, you know what I mean? And the battles would be the cherry on top, but like they were great at writing filler in those kind of shows, whereas I don't think Invincible is as good as that. There's a lot in this season of, are Mark and Eve going to get an apartment? And I'm like, there are so many threats. There are
Yeah.
so many threats. Like,
Spoiler
come on.
alert, they didn't.
Yeah, they didn't even get an apartment. We saw 5911s, but they couldn't get an apartment. Like, fuck me. But then you get to those last 3 episodes where, like, you've got the Powerplex
Yeah.
story, which again, like, very easy to forget with how much happened in the last 2 episodes. Then you've got Angstrom Levy and kind of the invasions of the evil variants of Mark. And then that just jumps right into Conquest. And it was very much like, just as Mark is like, okay, right, finally we can get back to this apartment discussion, it's like, nope, I'm here. And then Angstrom shows up, and then Conquest shows up as he's literally cleaning up the rubble from what happened with Angstrom. And that felt thrilling. The pace was absolutely phenomenal. It reminded me why I love this show, because there were good episodes in season 2, but it was very much like, oh, that's the good episode, and then the rest is kind of like, I don't know if I'm feeling it. I don't want to say I dislike this show yet, but I don't know if that episode worked. And you're trying to, when you're doing that thing with a show where you like it, but it wasn't really good, and you're kind of rounding up in your own head, and you're going, yeah, I'm just going to choose to not hate this, but I also know in my core it wasn't great. There was a lot of that in season 2. Season 3, and we spoke about this the last time we discussed it, it wasn't just great though because of the choices that they made, like kind of the big ones. It was great because of the little things as well. Like, it was great. I love kind of the complexity around Mark. Like, is Mark Earth's greatest hero, or is having him Earth's biggest threat? Because like the last 2 episodes and the devastation that came from it were directly related to beefs Mark has, and thousands of people died. And then they weigh up kind of the cost of that in the Powerplex storyline. And like, they don't forget about that. But then also the story that we discussed last time, where it's like the two gay heroes who try and come goods by the end and live a normal life, but they can't get away from it because the world just beats them down, so that they have to go back to villainy, and it's tragic there. And I'm like, yes, these kind of adult themes that scratch the itch that other superhero shows can't, and maybe live action superheroes, even shows like The Boys, can't get at these kind of themes. That's what I want from Invincible. There was a lot of that. Now, here's the flip side, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this. It's not perfect either, okay? For a start, there's so much going on at any one point, and the end sequence of season 3 is a great example of this. They were kind of trying to make the point of, oh, look at this, oh, do you remember the guy with all the aliens, oh, do you remember this, oh, do you remember that? And like, they were trying to be like, there's so much cool shit you've got coming up in season 4, but actually it overwhelmed me a bit. It's like when I talked about the Rings of Power with Jerry, and I know you then went on to watch that yourself as well. We had a discussion around, there's a lot going on, but I want the characters to kind of meet up, and like for it to focus on 1 or 2 big things next season. And I kind of want Invincible to do that as well. And it felt like we were heading there, but then they just kind of split it up towards the end of it. Like, even like the post-credit scene, we got another big story reveal, and I'm just like, I can't, there's too much here. And again, you say that that's like kind of third world problems, where it's like, what's the problem with having too much? It just means you get great episodes. And it really does work in a comic sense, because every comic has to be standalone. You have to go to the shop, you have to buy the comic, you have to read it, and it has to be worth the money. So you need different villains and stuff like that to keep long-term storylines going, to substantiate it. So that works in a comic sense. But in a TV sense, the end result of that is you don't get any Omni-Man or Alan from episode 4 onwards in this season. And that to me was big, because I'm like, Omni-Man is probably the character arc I care about the most, but you just don't have time to get to that. Or maybe there's not enough left in that story that you can't get to it. So, but I'm missing it. And and then people will show up, and I almost have to do that little retcon thing in my brain. I'm like, who's he? What? Why doesn't he like him? And then, oh yeah, Grant. Okay, I'm back. You know what I mean? And you're
Yeah.
like, and then there's another thing that I have an issue with, and it's the concept of death, because we got one big death in this season. It was Rexplode, obviously, and again, we've seen Rexplode die before and come back, and it feels like this is an actual death, but I don't trust this show anymore. Nobody dies in this show. Like, we had Mark and Conquest cause about 25 different equivalents to 9/11 in their battle here. It literally was. It was,
Yeah.
there's a 9/11, they went through another building, there's a 9/11, they went through another building, and then he went on the beach, and there's a 9/11, and you're like, holy fucking fuck. But yet somehow the body count does not reduce. You know what I mean? Conquest will be back. Like, we know that that's happening. Eve did her Jean Grey thing, which I think we could almost have a half-hour discussion if we had the time on that itself. Oliver's grand. All of the Guardians are fine except for Rex and maybe Darkwing, but Darkwing is probably going to be back because we didn't see him actually die. It's just implicit. Um, so it's like, does death even matter? So do the stakes matter? If nobody I love is going to die, then and the entire show is driven by an existential threat, like, am I bought in, or is it just fun and exciting? And it really kind of tells me, I'm like, it's not, do I like this show? I'm enjoying it week to week, but it's like, is this one of the truly great shows? Like, do the big moments matter? Will they be consequential, or are they just fun popcorn things? And that's where I'm kind of at with Invincible. I'm like, love it, really enjoy it, but kind of really get stuck into it, because if someone dies, I'm like, well, they're going to be back. Even when they
Mm.
showed Conquest, like, kind of at the end of season 2, I'm like, oh, well, Mark's decision to kill him and make a decision that I'm going to be a killer from now on, that actually doesn't matter. Like, I don't know. So what are your thoughts on that? I did have a great
Um,
time. I'm not trying to be difficult. I
yeah.
did have a great time.
I I that little ending sequence, I'll get to that first of the, oh, here's this threat, and also here's this threat, and also here's this one. I they can leave some of those things even out of next season. It's
Mm,
just to remind you that they're there. And
mm,
I don't really mind that too much, because like um the stuff with the alien squids, the brain squids, I'd completely forgotten about that, but it popped me big because I was like, oh fuck, okay, and these were a proper threat as well. Um, and then you've got like the likes of the Rihanna Marks that are kind of coming in now. And what's gonna happen with them? Are they gonna like become uh like, is there that whole thing of like these guys, like you said, 9/11 as well, a lot of building. It wasn't just
yeah.
Conquest. It was a lot of Marks too doing this. What's going to be the consequences of Cecil using them potentially to defeat some of these threats? You've also got the death of the Maulers. I do think the Maulers are done, and I think that's why we got that sequence too of like, we need to reintroduce a couple of recurring villains now again.
Mm,
I do think the Maulers are done. And the same with Rex as well. Like, Rex got shot in the head. This was his big fucking hero moment.
yeah.
Um, but I get what you mean with Eve coming back. Um, although I was absolutely devastated when when Conquest fucking took her out. I was like, oh fuck, is this
But
happening?
that felt like it mattered a lot, and we haven't read ahead in the comics, like, so
Yeah,
we don't know. So it felt like it mattered a lot. And then when she became Jean Grey, like, which is what happened, like, she just Dark
yeah.
Phoenix, you know what I mean? And when she became Jean Grey, I didn't hate it because they introduced the concept of that in the Adam Eve special. So I'm like, this isn't just,
Mm,
we weren't willing to kill Eve and we bottled it and gave her powers because we needed a big moment for you to feel a certain way, and then we took that away from you. But like, that's kind of the point that I get to, where it's like, holy fucking shit, oh no, they didn't, she's alive, and she's actually stronger than Mark, and now that's grand, and she can never actually die.
yeah.
They, that to me isn't, it's not ideal. Um
Even like that villain, I can't remember his name, who had the dragon come out of him.
Yes, yeah.
Like
And it's
he,
like it's okay if they're dead. It's okay if you beat the Martians. Like it's
yeah,
okay if you beat the dragon. Like that was a good episode. Like you don't need to keep bringing these people back. Like they're not big characters in the show. Eve is a big character, and if you do
yeah,
that once, that's okay. But it's like you did it with Rex last year, you did it with Eve this year, you did it with the Martians now, and you did it with the dragon. And they're only the people I can
even
think of.
shrinking Ray
Shrinking
as well.
Ray. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. They do, and duplicate. They did it with her.
yeah,
Duplicate's brother. They do it with everyone. Like death doesn't matter in this show, and it's just like, well, is Rex a bit of a pussy then? Like, does his death matter? Because he's the only one who actually seemed to stay dead, even though he did die and come back already. You know what I mean? I'm
yeah.
like, you know, for this to be emotional, I need to care because then the next time someone dies, like imagine they killed off Mark or Omni Man and they made a great sacrifice or something like that, and then you're like, oh well, he's gonna come back, and then you're like, oh, he didn't, and like that's what it felt like when we were doing Rex's funeral. I wasn't upset at Rex's funeral because I'm like, ah, come on,
Yeah.
Rex, come on. Oh, he's actually dead. Oh, I'm
Because even
disappointed.
that future when Mark is in the future and it looks like Rex, you thought Rex was in the fucking in
Yeah,
robot's suit, but it's actually Rudy renamed himself Rex, and they just kind
yeah.
of animated him to look kind of very similar to Rex.
And had Jason Mantzoukas do his voice for some reason. Like, I don't know, maybe that voice breaks and matures into Jason Mantzoukas.
Yeah, maybe I don't know. Actually, that's maybe you're right. Maybe he does come back in some fucking way and and they just reverse it and he becomes Rudy. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Or Rudy gets automation technology where he's like, I can sound like him too.
I totally
This
hear
is
what
a
you're saying
weird
though
voice.
with that kind of thinking about all of the fucking deaths. Even like Great Wall when he was like fucking dropped onto that building and you're like and then he just shows up re um kind of rejuvenating the dragon and he's just got like his arm in a sling and you're like, "Oh fuck. You should have died or you're else the show is showing me this dude's insanely fucking powerful in terms of like he can take a hit of being dropped from that height and just have a broken arm. I
And
guess he's called the Great Wall, so I mean it makes sense, I suppose, but
yeah, that's fair. And like, if anyone can come back from the dead, then what is the immortal superpower? Because that is a superpower. He comes back from the dead. Like he does it like that's his entire thing. And he's just like, lads, I've got one thing. And
yeah.
everyone's doing it now. Do you know what I mean? Like it's yeah, they literally have a character. I didn't even name him, but his entire shtick is you can't kill me, I'll come back. You know what I mean? Like it's yeah.
Immortal and Duplicate's entire arc this season, I think that was like one of the weakest parts of the show though.
Yeah, it doesn't really
Especially
work.
especially when they were like, "Ah, we're gonna fuck off now when the planet's completely under an insane threat because we're in love now," and like that's it.
And but also like the way when they did that future episode with when Immortal couldn't remember who Kate was, he was like, "Which one's
Yeah.
that?" I've been married a lot, and I'm like, "Okay, I get that you're just making the point that this is really far into the future, but if you're gonna then bring me back to them and ask me to care about their relationship, I'm like, bitch, he forgets you. I'm like, you won't even remember your name,
Yeah.
like." He thought it was Eve. He remembered Eve. I'm like, fuck,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
but
It is
aside from
good. We
death
like
not
this
really
show.
mattering,
Yeah.
we do love this. I mean, we got a 29-minute fight in the last
Mm,
episode, and it never got boring. It was always
yes.
just compelling, like, and that's a really tough thing to pull off.
Mm.
Is a half an hour long, just brutal beatdown, and it's still being amazing.
And
Um,
shout out to obviously Jeffrey D. Morgan. They did the whole Negan Glenn thing again there.
it was so meta. It was amazing that
Yeah,
Glenn
yeah.
finally got his revenge.
Yeah, yeah. I do like The Walking Dead because obviously, for anyone who doesn't know, Robert Kirkman, the writer of the comic, he obviously is the creator of The Walking Dead. Also, randomly wrote Shawshank Redemption. Um,
Huh.
like, it's
Wait,
like okay,
was that not Stephen King? Oh, did he write the screenplay for it?
he
Was it?
wrote the screenplay.
Fuck, man.
Well, like, he's a weird CV, but like I like all of his stuff.
Yeah.
But that's why you're getting so many Walking Dead tie-ins. But I'm into it. It's cool. It was and it was cathartic as well. Like, this is the one that Glenn wins, ironically, with his head. Like, and I'm like,
Yeah.
the thing that cost him, like, it was very meta. But Jeffrey Dean Morgan absolutely destroyed in this episode and
Mm,
made it, because if Conquest isn't compelling, then yeah, it starts to feel long, it starts to feel samey. And it was literally the voice work that got it done. It was absolutely
yeah.
phenomenal this
Even even
episode.
even that monologue of him being lonely, you're kind of like, oh, don't you fucking make me like feel an ounce of sympathy for you right now. But
Yeah,
you
yeah.
did a little bit.
Yeah. And yeah, I don't know. And yeah, the voice casting continues, like Walton Goggins as well as Cecil is just one
Oh
of my
man,
faves. His performance is
I
just
love
nailed
him.
on.
Yeah,
I loved his episode as well, where it's like,
his
um
backstory.
the backstory and
Yeah,
kind of what drives him. And we had that discussion kind of last time we discussed the show, if anyone wants to go back and check it out. But yeah, I'm in a big Walton Goggins vibe right now.
I did send you a very drunken voice note of it involved a lot of cursing about how great Donald was this season as well, of just being a complete badass.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I see.
It's
And
like
in
Darius
that,
Bray,
I
Jerry,
did.
fucking
I
come.
I didn't. I know. I don't hate Donald, like, as I did. I remember in the voice note you said, I know you hate Donald. I'm like, I don't hate Donald, but not as like a main character. I'm
Yeah,
like,
I
don't
know,
give me
I know,
like
I know.
15-minute section of the episode dedicated to Donald, but put him in the background. Like, what was the line he said this season that was badass? It's like, you're gonna
Oh, it's like
die, Donald. Don't do it.
Cecil's like, yeah, if you go out there, you're gonna get yourself killed, and it's like, that's what I do, sir. And you're like, God, Donald, fucking go get him.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I
Also,
had a great.
Mike from Breaking Bad's in it as well as that guy Brit,
Yeah.
who I've never seen before, but it was like apparently people love him.
The only
So,
shows that I can think of that haven't had a big star show up. So we want to see next season. I want to see Christopher Moltisanti play a character in this. Hey, oh, hey, I'm flying here. Hey. And
did you
I
say I'm
want to
flying
see,
here?
yeah, yeah. And I want to see Tom Wamsgams play a character in it as well. Like, so we haven't had a Succession or Kieran Culkin. Imagine Kieran Culkin. He'd fit really well
He
into
would fit
Invincible.
so well into it. Yeah.
He'd be so good as like a smarmy like villain
Yeah.
foil for Invincible. Oh man, make it happen. Succession and The Sopranos, they're the only two I think we don't have here. So yeah, look, we're big fans of this.
Yeah.
Kev, we usually do plugs towards the end, and we still have a lot to discuss. But I know you're busy right now, and I'll let you kind of explain what has you so busy, and then I'll chastise you for being busy in a moment, because there's something I want to discuss. But what's going on in
Hmm.
your world? What has you so busy?
Oh, well, we're getting ready for an Irish tour in April. We got what are we playing? Belfast, Galway, Limerick, Cork, and Kilkenny as well. We've got a new EP coming out as well pretty soon after that. And then we're kind of we're writing new tunes as well. But this tour we're going to be doing is basically road testing a bunch of new songs.
Nice.
That will be coming out in the EP, and then as Dara, our drummer, and I have been kind of saying, one or two new songs that haven't been on, that's not going to be on anything yet, but we just kind of want to
Okay.
road test them a little bit and see what kind of reactions they get. So if you are about any of those counties in April, check out the dates. But yeah, do come. We would really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Check out the fan club social media as well. We'll link to it as well. Like, I know I'll put it up on my socials too. Well,
Mm.
we're checking out. You're gonna play some of the hits for anyone who's coming along, going, oh, it's just gonna be new stuff. You're gonna play
No, no, no,
certain
no.
hits.
There'll
Yeah,
be all the hits there as well, but we're just
yeah.
there's about three to four. We'll probably split them into different nights of testing out different
Okay.
songs as well.
Okay. I
Yeah,
love it. Okay. So you get exclusives, you get to hear stuff that you've never heard
exactly. Yeah,
before, that you mightn't even hear with the new release, but also you get what you know and love from Fangclub too. So
yeah.
there you go. Check it out,
And they're
guys.
kind of bangers as well. Not
Yeah,
gonna lie,
they
they're
are.
pretty
No,
fucking
look,
great. They're pretty fucking great.
I no beef with the new material, but again, you know how people get.
I know,
You know
I
how
know, I
people
know.
are. If they think
Yeah,
it's just a new one, like, again, like
yeah.
people, yeah, that's it, exactly. So I will forgive you for still somehow, despite being almost as
Oh, okay.
probably as obsessive with TV as me, um not watching the best TV show on television right now. Still, somehow, Severance, you've missed it. But also at the same time, I'm very jealous that when you're finished and when your schedule kind of clears up a little bit,
Mm.
not only will you have the likes of The Last of Us and Andor back, you can get stuck into the best show on television. So I do want to touch on Severance because we're heading into the last episode of season 2 this week. But with Kevin in mind, obviously having not seen it, I won't give any plot spoilers here, but I do want to there is some stuff I want to address as well. And the start is that episode 7, season 2, is one of, if not the best episodes of television in the 21st century. It is phenomenal storytelling, giving you a much needed backstory to a certain character. I can't even tell you who the character is. That's a spoiler in itself. But there's a backstory here that we've been crying for. But again, you kind of feel maybe we won't get that. Like, the thing with Severance is it's a mystery show, but it's not one of these shows that waits to get to the point. Like, it's rushing towards the point. I find it hard to, like, we're kind of at a point where in the finale, I'm like, are we going to learn what everything means next week? And we're only in season 2, and there's probably going to be 4 or 5 of these seasons. So it kind of like, it doesn't rush it, but it doesn't fuck around. It doesn't do a Lost on you where you're like, they've no intention of answering these questions anytime soon. They will give you the information you need to know, and more than enough. But then, like any great kind of mystery show, every question that, or every answer they give gives you 10 more questions, and it kind of unravels greatly. But episode 7, the way it's told is absolutely masterful, and why it's one of the, like, it's top 10 best TV episodes in the 21st century. It kind of skips through different periods of times and people's versions or perceptions of what happened in a way that reminds me of, were you a big Lost guy, Kev?
Oh yeah, huge.
The Constant?
Yeah.
It is this show's version of The Constant. It is, and maybe better than The Constant. And I loved Lost, and I love The Constant. Like, what it does is it skips through all of these different, like, times and perceptions, but it doesn't handhold for you, but you understand everything. And it does all of this visually. Like, there's flashbacks from before the events of the show that kind of use this really well lit, kind of grainy flashback style visual that we're not used to. But then you cut to a part of the show, and it's told non-linear, but you cut to a part of the show where it is set at this time, and all of a sudden it's the very sterile, defined visual of the show that you're looking at, and you know that you're back inside Lumen. And at one point, there's just this zoom in on a character's eye as they remember or change time, and you understand, despite you just looking at their eye and nothing else, you understand what's happening, where you are, where you're going, what are they, where they, and like, there were times where I just, like, literally sat back and was just like, audibly said, wow. Like, I'm like, wow. But it never feels showy. It never feels excessive. It tells it beautifully and artfully in a way that's almost showing off and doing laps around. Think of all the great shows we're talking about and that we love at the moment, and it is doing laps around these types of shows. It is masterful from director Jesse Lee Gagne. I loved it. The finale is this Friday, and beautifully, like, because you never know, it took us 3 years to have to wait for season 2 of Severance. You never know how long we're going to wait, but we've got 76 minutes. I fucking love a long finale. Thank you.
Yep.
The 2 episodes since episode 7 that have set up the finale have kind of slowed it down a bit, but they filled in a lot of blanks to kind of impacted the relentless momentum of the start of the season. Like, the first 7 episodes are like, this show's perfect. It's actually better than season 1. A lot of people are kind of like, oh, is it taking a step back? I'm not worried about that. I have 100% faith in showrunner Dan Erickson and collaborator Ben Stiller, who kind of works as a co-showrunner almost on this and is directing the finale. I know they're going to bring it home and amaze me as they always do. I'm literally just wondering how they keep the mystery box side of it going, because we're at the stage where you're like, oh, we're getting answers now. Like, there's no way we can not get the answers that we're looking for here with the way the plot is left. But surely they will, and I've every faith in them. I fucking love this show. Severance is phenomenal. If you, like Kev, have somehow not got around to this, do yourselves a favor. And like try do it like again, it's great to have it to binge, but like don't leave it to binge either. Like, you know, obviously if you haven't watched it, you've no other choice, but like it's the week to week experience. It is the theory kind of
Yeah.
crafting and stuff that kind of makes this and the wondering and the speculating and the chatting with your mates. I'm looking forward to you watching it because I know when you get around to this, I knew you hadn't watched it because you hadn't blown my phone up about it because you will. The second you start, you're like, oh my God, this, and now this, and now this, and now this, and who's this, and why are there goats, and what the fuck?
Goats.
There are goats. Goats
Okay.
are a big part of this. And okay, this isn't a spoiler, but no one knows why. You still don't
Mhm.
know why. But
It's like their equivalent of the smoke monster
there are big theories about the
or polar
goats.
bears.
You're like, this is how goats tie into all it. It's amazing. It's brilliant. It's random, but it's also hilarious and it's very easy to understand too. It's not crazy and out there. It's Adam Scott.
Yeah.
And like that he's leading this and it's Ben Stiller. So it's got that kind of everyman sensibility where you don't need to be you can read other people's series if you want to get really into the weeds, but watching the show week to week is very simple, straightforward, and quite funny at times as well. But also emotional and heartfelt and all of those things too. And it makes you think because of the nature of the show, because it's about people living two versions of themselves in the same body. Like there's questions where you're like like think about it this way, right? If you fucked someone the same person, but you fucked their innie and their outie as they're called, like the innie is the person who works in Lumen and the outie is the normal person who
Mm.
chose to get severed, like is that cheating or is it true love and stuff like that as well? And then you're just thinking about all of these kind of theories. They explore everything and they just make you think about things that no other show can because it is this specific. But you're like, well, that's fucking interesting. Like it's
Yeah.
brilliant, amazing. I love it.
I will get on
Um,
it.
I can't wait to get the texts. But we
Mhm.
will catch up when you're caught up. Um, let's finish with some Daredevil talk. Um, I've got a confession here. Much like you, kind of with The Last of Us Part 2, one of my great nerd shames was that I'd never watched the Netflix show until this year, getting ready for this. It
Wow.
just passed me by. And because there's 39 episodes of it, I said, I'm gonna watch it, but I need the right time and I need
Yeah.
the ramp because I'm always watching so much between movies and TV. And then I'm like, okay, this is coming back. I have to watch it now. And I adored it. I
Yeah.
loved it. I literally finished it like 2 days before this show started, but I went into it with 10 out of 10 hype. It's probably the best Marvel show, like better than anything the MCU has done. I loved WandaVision, but like it's just I loved it. And then we're getting into spoilers now. 10 minutes into it, Foggy fucking dies.
Yeah.
And I want to discuss this and then we'll discuss the rest. But I want to discuss this as its own subject because Foggy, one of the main characters in Netflix, he is the version of us. He is the audience avatar. He is the guy who's like, this is crazy, you know what I mean? And so on.
Yeah.
He's the
He's the
person
heart
you
and soul.
relate. Yeah, he is the heart and soul of the Netflix show. Then he just dies in the first 10 minutes. And that should be an emotional scene. But I just yelled at the screen and I went, you fucked it, lads. You fucked it. For fuck's sake, you fucked everything within 10 minutes. And I know you, for example, turned it off. So talk me through
Yeah.
how you felt.
I the first thing I noticed was even the look of it just felt a little bit off to me. Um, but when you're in the bar at the start of it, you got Foggy and Karen and Matt all talking, and you're like, ah, it's just like old times. This is gonna be class. And then out of nowhere, Foggy's just gone. And on top of that, you had a fight scene that had some of the worst CGI I've seen in a Marvel show. Like
Mm,
needlessly fucking CGI'd as well. Like you would go back to the Netflix one, it's all practical choreographed stunt fighting. This was pointlessly CGI'd, especially up on the roof as well, and it looked awful. And after that fight, I was like, I don't know if I can. And this is I was looking forward to the show for so long because I loved the
yeah.
Netflix one, and I turned it off. And I messaged you, being like, "Is this worth it?" After because it was about 2 or 3 days afterwards, I was like, I need to get Jared's opinion on this, and you said stick with it. It does get a bit better,
We'll get to that. We will
but
get to it separately.
it
But
it
yeah,
I haven't had a show annoy me as much that I had to be like, I am no interest in watching this right now. That I was so
yeah,
hyped for it as well
yeah.
and turned it
They,
off.
I've never seen a show do that where I'm like, this is can't miss. When I finish the Netflix show,
Yeah,
I'm like, this is can't miss. This is like, they've got it. Like, this is going to be great. There's no way this can go wrong because you've got so many people in the same show coming back
yeah,
and redoing it. And they wanted to do it as well. If you look at the story behind it, they were all set for season 4. So it's not a case of them just like bringing back a dead show. There was life in this. Everyone was up for it. They got so many major players back in the mix, even behind the camera. And I've
and it was
never seen,
so critically acclaimed as well. The
yeah.
for those three, they're really, really well loved. You're like, what were
And
you doing?
10 minutes, they just, for me, the show just dug itself in a massive hole. I thought this was really poor. And I
Mm,
want to be clear. I went into this eyes wide open knowing what it was. This isn't a Netflix show. It's not season 4. And every interview was prepping you for that,
yeah.
okay? This is them having a bit of a fresh start. They're saying this is season 1 of a new show, not season 4 of an old show. We're doing our own thing. They're bringing it into the MCU, and on the strength of Daredevil's cameos within the MCU up to this point,
Mm,
they've done really well with them. I'm okay with that. I'm okay having this be a bit of connective tissue. It's probably going to bleed into Spider-Man 4. I think that's going to be
yeah.
where this kind of the next step of this goes. I'm even okay with them not using Foggy or Karen, okay? Even though the first 15 minutes was actually a rewrite and to address how angry other fans were
Yeah,
with
because
Foggy and Karen.
they weren't cast at all originally,
They
wasn't it?
weren't. They weren't.
Yeah.
And the show doesn't want to be, and that's why, because if you have, and I get it, if you have them, it's season 4. There's no way around it because it's the same people. It's Kingpin back, it's Matt back, it's Foggy back, it's Karen back. It can't not be season 4, and it has to be around them and the law firm and this and that and the other. Um, and they don't want to do that, and that's okay. But then just like explain it away. Be like, oh, Foggy got a job over here. He's after moving out with Marsha. You know what I mean? Put
Yeah.
it in your back pocket and go, if we, at the end of season 2, we have Foggy come back in, Matt's like, oh my God, it's you. You know what I mean? Just keep it there. Like, you don't just make the decision and go with it. But the way that they did this felt like the MCU kind of broing the Netflix series and
Mm,
kind of going, you're in the big leagues now, kid. That shit doesn't matter. You know what I mean? It was so fucking annoying. Even the choice to have Matt try and kill Bullseye was a betrayal of everything the Netflix show was about.
yeah.
Like, the entire season 3 of Kingpin was, is Matt going to lose himself and kill Kingpin because there's no other way. Like, how, like, he has to, because Kingpin can beat anything. No matter what he does, he's going to keep coming back stronger. So Matt has to kill him, but then Matt's going to lose the part of himself that defines him as a hero, which is the belief, and this is what makes him a lawyer, that everyone can be redeemed, no matter how bad they are. The entire series built to that, and he made the decision not to, even with his arch nemesis. And then he gets emotional 10 minutes into this new show and it's just like, fuck it. And it's just like, what? Like,
Yeah.
and you
It's a
wouldn't,
different Matt, I guess they could argue, but
yeah. And you wouldn't even mind it. Like, because Foggy's death is probably the one thing that would make
yeah.
Matt flip that switch, but it's the first 10 minutes of this new show. So his death doesn't matter because we don't understand it, because it's not established. So none of this matters. And now Foggy's dead. And then they just go 1 year later, and you're like, oh, fuck off. There's no
Yeah.
coming back from this. He can't even, like, oh, we got him on life support. There's nothing. He's just gone. And then Karen, like, oh, BT dubs, I'm gone. And it's
Yeah.
like, it dug itself in such a hole. And
And
I've
like
never seen a
and
show do that.
it's still really weirdly written going on when like Matt and Kingpin have that talk in the cafe. They do talk about their past. And you're
Yeah.
like, is this the Netflix show that they're talking about in their past? Or is it something else? Is it like, oh, we just have to assume that they've been at loggerheads for the last number of years
No,
and
it is.
it's a
It is.
different version of that?
it's the continuity from the Netflix show, except well, I get the show's concept. It's a continuity of the Netflix show, but what they're doing is they're going, yeah, but now this is the next adventure that they're on. Like the Netflix show, and what I liked about it was every show felt different, and they wrote it as in every show should feel like its own graphic novel in that it's
Yeah.
meaty, there's lots going on, but you could in theory watch series 3, 1, 2. You don't have to watch it in order. Like it's better obviously if you do, but it's its own story, and that's what this is. But it is retaining that story. So
Mhm.
all of the stuff we know is true, but essentially now they're not in Hell's Kitchen, but they're increasing the stakes to New York City. You know what I mean? And it looks different, it feels different, and I'm okay with all of that. But don't sacrifice Foggy, and don't tell the Netflix show to fuck off to have to
Yeah,
make that point. You know what I mean? Like you can still have you can have both, and they just chose not to. Now, I did tell you to go back, and we haven't
you did.
discussed this, but I did say, like, and as crazy as it was for me to be so out on a show that I loved within 10 minutes, it's almost crazier to think that they released the first 2 episodes last week and episode 3 this week, and somehow I'm back in already.
Yeah, I
Like they
know.
got me back, they turned me around, and I'm like, okay, great, okay.
And I'm glad. I'm really glad you're like, Kev, actually do stick with this because it does get
Yeah,
kind of better again. And it did. It did. By episode 3, I was like, all right, I'm back in with this.
yeah,
They've
yeah.
there's an interesting enough story going on here. That
And what got you back? So what was it specifically that made you like be like, I don't give a fucking Foggy's dead? No, when he passes, but you know what I mean?
it's Vincent D'Onofrio and Kingpin. I
Yeah,
can't not love it. And this story that he's got going on of being mayor, I love it. It's such a like I'm sure it's a comic book story that they're basing this on as well, where he does become mayor of New York. But it's such a smart way to the two of them are trying to basically be on their best behavior, even though they're kind of alluding to a lot with it, especially all the close-ups of their knuckles of just wanting to get back into it again, and they have to better themselves or to better their agendas that they're going for, have to stick to like a very clean version of themselves for the moment. And I love that. I think that tension that's building is great. And I also
yeah.
just love courtroom drama. Any of those kind of courtroom scenes, it's even like in the Netflix show as well. It's probably all a lot of bollocks, to be honest, of courtroom mumbo jumbo. But I'm in. I don't know anything about that. I'm like, yeah, that sounds of it, right?
Well, Matt is a terrible lawyer for a
He
start. Like, let's talk about that. Let's talk about not even telling his own client that he
that
was
he's
gonna
going to
out
reveal.
him.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck?
You're like,
What?
there's a reason superheroes keep their identity secret is to protect their families, man.
And you should know that. You're one. What? What
Yeah.
the fuck? Like, yeah, but like, I don't hate it. I'm like, it's just interesting. It's not that it's a bad choice.
Yeah.
It's that it's just, it's good television, but it's, yeah, it's like, what, Matt? Like, you're terrible.
You kind of have to come into acceptance of like this is a slightly more, I don't even want to use the word campier, but like it's a bit
it's
more of a
Disney.
comic booky version of
It's
of Daredevil.
it's
Because like even
Disney.
even when
It's
they're in the
Disney where the
yeah,
first one was an adult graphic
yeah.
novel.
Even though it's an
Um,
18s.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. There is violence and stuff like that as well, but it's Disneyfied. And
Yeah.
I'm okay with that because like they're not telling me this is the same as the Netflix show. I'm
Yeah.
okay with that, but it's the first 15 minutes where it's like fuck the Netflix show. It's like you don't have to tell me, you don't have to tell the thing I like to fuck itself to make a different show.
Yeah.
But when it's a different show, it's quite good. Like what I like about it, for example, was season 1 of the show, like the Netflix show, was amazing. And it was amazing because it was just this focused 13 episode ploy to like chase and nail Kingpin. You know what I mean? Even though he was
Mm.
just Fisk, he wasn't Kingpin at that point. Okay. I loved it. And it was just so focused, but there were so many different sprouts, and he just seemed so inevitable and unstoppable. And I love villains that aren't villains because of how powerful their powers are. They're villains because they're just so cunning and they can outsmart everyone and
Yeah.
they can work the system against it. Like think Baron Zemo and stuff like that as well.
Mm.
You know,
Great villain.
those kind of villains are brilliant. But like season 2 and 3 are different, and what I liked about them was they had such meaty subplots. There's so much going on, but all of them are like, oh, I want to go back and see what's happening there, but I love this story and I love this. In season 3, Foggy, Karen, and Matt are rarely, two of them are rarely together in the same room, but they're all off doing interesting
Yeah.
shit. That's what this seems to be settling into, and that's where I'm like, this is the show I like. This is the show I like, because you've got the Punisher aspect, and that's going to come into it, and that's going to get more. You've
Yeah, and
got
the
the
crooked cops and yeah. And
crooked cops, and how does that play in, and how does that like have John Castle or Frank Castle come back in? Like, you've got Fisk and Vanessa having marital problems, you've got Matt in the
love
law
those
firm.
scenes. Yeah.
Yeah, and there is the interconnected pieces where obviously you've got Matt and Fisk on two sides, and there's going to be an inevitable whatever happens there. And I don't think it's inevitable actually that they're going to fight. Like, it could go either way. It's the most
Yeah.
likely outcome, but it's not inevitable. But they're going to
And
interact again. But then you've got his girlfriend there, as their
as a
counselor.
therapist, the man, I
Yeah,
love
yeah.
that little wrinkle they put in there as well. It's like that's amazing. And like
Mm,
you're kind of wondering, did Fisk choose her on purpose? Did he know
mm,
that they're together and he's chosen her as well? As
mm.
like you said, another clever cunning ploy, and he doesn't give a shit about this counseling at all.
Yeah.
Love that. I was what I was gonna say earlier though, the Disneyfication of it, some of it reminded me of She-Hulk a little bit, where you have when he's talking about White Tiger and just very casually talking about some magical pendant that gives him extra powers,
Yeah.
like during the courtroom scenes. I thought that's just how casual that was, and people were like, that's fine.
It was. See, White Tiger is a comic book character. He's actually the
Yeah,
first ever Latin character in Marvel Comics, and he goes back all the way to the 70s. So I think that was more just like of White Tiger, you know what I mean? But it's like, actually, I only know this because I did the research after seeing this. I'd never
yeah.
heard of White Tiger before this.
Neither am I.
Yeah, so it came across the exact same to me, and he's like, of course, this magical amulet which gives him power, and I'm like, yeah, of course, of course. What about the amulet?
Should that be taken
Like,
into police evidence?
I feel like if you're gonna, like, no one throws the word amulet around
Yeah.
casually. Like, you know, it's not a word that comes up in casual conversation. I'm like, you need to tell, you can't just throw that away.
Yeah.
But yeah, they did. But like,
I
that's
also
why,
love
like, they're.
Cherry as well. I thought he's a great character now as well.
Yeah, yeah, and
Um,
and I thought Ayala as well, Hector Ayala. I thought that character, and obviously the actor who plays him has unfortunately passed. Um, since, so like, yeah, obviously he won't be back based off the ending anyway, but it's tragic to see. But just to give him a shout out, I thought he is the reason I'm back on this show, because I left the first two episodes, like the second episode I'm like, okay, it was better, but I still have that sour taste in my mouth. And this episode I'm like, we're back, and it
yeah.
was it was him, it was that story, it was having that, like, him give heart to that and meaning, because that's what the show misses without your Foggy and Karen or any of the people that we're tethered to. With Fisk still in this weird space of where we're not familiar with him, where he's the mayor, and it's interesting to see Fisk kind of have to navigate bureaucracy and
Yeah.
public opinion and stuff. That's a new challenge for Fisk, but we don't have anything that tethers us to the old stories. So you need characters that you can buy into right now, because everyone else is in these new surroundings, and we're not 100% sold on the new characters yet. We don't have the connection to them that we had to Foggy and Karen.
Mm,
So Hector just had me buy in straight away, and that whole storyline was expertly told. And then obviously you had the twist at the end. I'm like, okay, we're back. All right,
yeah.
great. And now it looks like they're leaving us to, like, again, the tease is that Frank Castle. We know it's not. Like, you can pretty much guess, because the actions are the antithesis of what the Punisher would do. He
Yeah.
like he wouldn't just go out and murder a good person. Like, he murders like criminals. He just believes the cops don't get the job done enough. I like the idea of the cops being corrupted as well. I think that's really
Yeah.
believable in America. Um,
Even if the storyline now as well with the commissioner who's completely against Fisk, but now has got evidence against him as well, and he's gonna. I'm excited to see where that storyline goes in. Also, a shout out to what they're doing here as well, which I thought is very like Watchmen, especially in the comics, of doing these little interviews with people out in the streets in New York.
The BB
The
interviews,
BB News.
yeah.
I love that.
Yeah,
I think that
yeah,
works really, really well within the show of kind of giving how New York is kind of feeling about everything, and you get just some of them are just kind of throwaway lines, but I think they really work in the show as well.
agree.
Kind of giving New York a bit more of a character, I think, through these little interviews, and then seeing Fisk as well going to be influencing how these interviews are going to go now as well. Um,
Agree.
yeah, huge fan of that.
I've just moved myself away because I realized I was in a wrestling ring, and this isn't a wrestling show, so apologies if everyone notices my background is different. Like, this
I
isn't a
did at the
wrestling show.
start, but I was like, maybe he just wants to be in the ring today.
Sometimes I just like to sit in the ring, think about the good times. Apologies for that. That was all me. Do you know what? Like, this is such a tangent, right? I'm doing a course at the moment, and it's a night course, but obviously, and it's over Zoom, and we record using Zoom. But every fucking week after I do a podcast, I forget that I have a virtual background on. The amount of times I've joined where I'm like, I'm in the Friends Cafe, I'm in the cinema, I'm in a wrestling ring. I'm just like, what the and what makes it worse is that it's like a lecture course where they talk at you. There's not much time for interaction. So like if we had like a breakout room or something, they could be like I could get slagged about it. But like
Mm.
I don't get to talk to these people. So you just think I'm a fucking idiot. And it's directly because of this podcast. Apologies anyway. But yeah, no, sorry. Another thing here's a theory that I have on this show. I think we're going to do both, okay? And I think this is what makes Daredevil good because it's not a 6 to 8 episode. Well, this is actually 9 episodes, but it's 18 episodes broken into 2 series. But I think we're going to get both. Are we sure Fisk is the big bad in this?
I mean, I would have assumed so until you're after like putting some doubt in my mind here. Is it GQ kind of mean like he's been the big bad for like the first three of the Netflix ones, really? And we're gonna get maybe someone else to change it up a little
I'm
bit.
not 100% sure the Fisk. On the balance of things, if I was to put money on it, I'd say 70% he's the bad guy in this, okay?
Mhm.
And he is still Fisk, which inherently makes him not good. But this show does love an anti-hero. We're gonna get the Punisher in this. And I'm not saying he's gonna be heroic in any way. I think we'll get both. I'm very interested by Vanessa here. Okay.
Yeah,
Fisk is putty when it comes to her. Um, they're obviously having problems. They're in marriage therapy. Um, Fisk's big promise is to clean up crime, and that's put him at odds with Vanessa here. As Queen Pin almost. You
because they
know,
did have her wearing white a lot of this.
yeah, like that's something. It's not nothing. It's going somewhere, and it's not. And it's boring if it's just like, oh yeah, the therapy worked. We love it. We love each other again. You know what I mean? That's not
Yeah.
where this is going. I don't know where it is, but I'm like, do Fisk and Matt have to team up at some point? But then Fisk and Matt are at odds, obviously, over the vigilantism and stuff like that as well. Do they team up before Matt goes full Daredevil, and then does Matt have to go full Daredevil, and that puts him back at odds with Fisk? Again, a Daredevil season can do this, where you get people who are on the same side at the start, and then they twist, and then they go opposite directions, and all of a sudden now they're the big bad, and so on and so forth. That's very Daredevil to have kind of multiple strands to this. But I'm really interested in the Vanessa aspect of this because, yeah, like I said, it's not ending with them just like getting back together and being in love. That's not what they're trying to tell us here.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering where that goes. Or does Vanessa end up with Matt? Like, does she end up turning on King? Like, how does this happen? Does she become an informant? Does she help bring him down? I think that's one to watch. I'm not saying it's the most interesting part of the show. It's probably not. But it's the thing that has me most interested, the story that has me most interested for the potential that it could cause. Like, I don't know how that goes. I don't know where that finishes, but they're not doing it for nothing.
Yeah. And because they're putting way too much time into telling their kind of marital problems, and her really emphasizing that she took over the business while he was recovering For me,
Yeah.
I love the way they just laughed off. Oh, you got shot in the head, but I'm kind of just like
They're
I
they're
I
treating
walked it
Echo
off.
they're treating Echo with the right amount of like kind of reverence in this, where they're just going, yeah, you got shot in the head. That's all we need to discuss about that anyway. Just like, yeah, it's a
Yeah,
bit of a punchline, and that's like, yeah, that's probably fair of Echo standing in this world. A lot of people are
um,
giving out about Fisk kind of immediately getting mayor as well, and they're like, oh, well, like, how would you elect someone like that? And to them, I just have to say, read a newspaper. Like
yeah,
once one thing I am
exactly.
glad though is they're not playing him as Trumpy. We're just coming off, I don't know if you've seen Mickey 17 yet. And Mark Ruffalo in that, without any spoilers, he's very Trumpy, like in
Okay,
his delivery and everything. And I'm like, yeah, that's gonna get really old really quick because everyone's gonna
it
go
already
for
did
that
with
in
the
Hollywood.
boys. Like,
Yeah,
um, I'm that was something that I was worried about as well with Fisk becoming mayor. Was like, are they going to do a Trump thing with him? But they haven't so far,
yeah,
and I don't think Vincent D'Onofrio because I'm pretty sure him and Matt had a lot to do with where the story is even going and what
yeah,
they wanted to tell too. They had a lot of input in it, and I don't think Vincent D'Onofrio would want to do that. I think as Fisk either. There's just
yeah.
better ways and there's better stories to tell.
Well,
Um,
and I've no problem with them doing it quickly as well, because it's just like these. This is the setup,
yeah,
okay? They're at odds. If he goes back
and
to
he
crime,
just
Matt
won.
comes for him. Yeah,
He didn't win by much. It was like 53%, I think it was.
yeah, and like again, but what I would have loved to see a bit more of is why is the MCU? We know it's interesting why the world got so disillusioned that they thought Trump was the answer, and the consequences of that decision. That's an interesting political subplot of, unfortunately, our lives and existence. But I would love to see what made the MCU that disillusioned. Like
Yeah.
they vaguely kind of hand wave that and like crime, but like there's always crime, and heroes are a solution to crime. You know what I mean? So like, what happened there to make them go for their equivalent of Trump? But I'm glad he's not playing it as Trump, because having him be Kingpin is enough. Like, he doesn't need to be Trumpy. But
And
I think
they
it's
need
also relevant to have like a story about someone who is corrupt being in power and kind of what dangers that have. That feels timely, but not in an overly political way, because I'm not watching Daredevil to help me evaluate how I need to feel about the political landscape of the real world. Like, that's
yeah.
not why we watch Daredevil.
Like and they need to, I think, not be afraid to I don't even want to say shoot, but like mention other stuff that's happened in New York in the
Yeah,
past like fucking 15 years in the MCU.
yeah.
Because they see like I know we got a little Spider-Man mention, which was nice. Like they're
Mm.
acknowledging Peter Parker's around. Um, or actually, no, they don't even know who Peter Parker is at this stage. They've all
No, they
forgotten.
don't know Peter Parker, but they know
They know
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man
Like,
though.
I'd have been okay if they'd have been like, yeah, these superheroes were great. And then the last time we saw Spider-Man, Doctor Strange had to open up the sky and all these aliens who were chasing Spider-Man came back in.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, like, just tell me
like
that. I just want to know that thing that makes New York want to, like, have, shut up, Alexa. Can you hear my Alexa? I'm busy. Um, but sorry. But, yeah, I want to see what happened in New York in that sense.
yeah, it's like, is this the reason why people are so disillusioned, and that's why
Yeah.
Kingpin gets in? Maybe.
Yeah.
Uh,
Maybe we'll get into that. Maybe that's what BB's for. But I'm not really getting that. I'm just getting the split of like, yeah, I'm sick of superhero. Why? Why? I mean,
yeah,
the MCU has given you plenty of reasons. Just tell me which one it is. I'm
yeah,
like,
because there's tons of reasons people would be disillusioned or annoyed or don't feel safe at all, and like
mm,
crime is just such a vague fucking. And I know
yeah.
crime is a thing, but like a lot of those comics, I think that were written when New York was not in a great like like in the 80s and 90s when the crime in New York was literally a massive fucking thing like
Mm,
as well. And you have to move on, I think, a little bit from that now, especially the way the MCU went, where so much supernatural stuff was after happening.
yeah.
You can lean into it a little bit and talk about it. That's fine.
Yeah.
Like, in fact, it's better to do that because it makes it feel like a bit more cohesive, I think, and that's what's missing a lot in the MCU now as well.
Yeah.
Uh,
And look, maybe Daredevil is the answer for that because it traditionally is one of those shows that likes to get into the weeds of these topics,
yeah,
whereas the MCU will just yada yada a lot of it. And I believe in this show. And I think that's a massive achievement to turn it around from you switching off and me yelling, you fucked it within the first 10 minutes. I think
yeah,
that's an achievement. And I'm glad because I was looking forward to this. It was such a value add. Like I remember this almost feels like do you remember we got that time a few years ago where it was like House of the Dragon and the Rings of Power were airing at the same time? And then there's
yes,
this little show Andor came along, and actually Andor is better than all of them.
yeah,
It feels like we've got The Last of Us and Andor now, and I'm not saying this is going to be better than either of them. Like, I don't think it will be, but um, you've got this show then just kind of hovering around the periphery, and we're all thinking they're the big shows that we have to look forward to. And Severance is ending, but I just feel like this could be the show that's like, actually, yeah, that was fucking great. Like,
yeah.
and you forget that it comes up, but it's on every Wednesday, and you're like, oh yeah, this is fucking great. I'm really happy to have Daredevil back. I'm really happy to be able to enjoy it again, and that's what they got me, where they got me after episode 3. So, if you gave up on it, sorry, we've just ruined everything for you. But episode 4 is on this week, so watch it then.
Yeah.
But no, I'd recommend it. Don't give up hope. It comes good.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I'm really glad you were like, stick with this fucking Kev.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's good. By the way, as well, before we go, I just wanted to give maybe get your thoughts very briefly
Mm-hmm.
on Mythic Quest. Have you been keeping up with that?
Yeah,
Do you
it's
ever feel
not.
like do you feel like it's just homework at this stage to keep up with the fucking show?
Yeah, it's like it's never bad. Like the first few episodes were bad, and now it's not bad now since we last spoke about it. Like they had the kind of the Mystery Castle week, and that was pretty good
Murder Mystery was
episode.
great. Yeah.
Murder Mystery, yes, sorry. Where they did the traitors, and that was fun. Um, and then this week's episode where they kind of did the bottle episode. It was
Yeah.
probably the weakest of all of them, but it was still good. Um,
Apparently that
Charlie
kid who
Day,
plays Pootie wrote that.
really, that's
Yeah.
amazing. Charlie Day is in it as well, so I'm always going to be a fan of seeing him on my screen. So I thought he
He
was
was
really good.
excellent in this as
Yeah,
well. He
yeah. So
was.
there's stuff to like. So I don't see it
It's
as homework yet. It's more just like, oh yeah, but like there's so much shows on that I'm just like, yeah, I could
I
drop you.
it felt like it's just the Ian and Poppy will they won't they fucking drama show now, and I'm just sick of
Yeah.
it. Just like move on from the storyline.
It just feels like the story is done. Like it just feels like
Yeah,
they've run out of road,
it
and
really
yeah,
does.
yeah. But it doesn't feel like it's ending anytime soon. Like even the way they advertise it and kind of promote it and stuff, it feels like they think, and they're even spinning off from it. And I'm just not going to watch the
Which I was
spin-offs.
so surprised about. Side
Yeah,
quest or whatever it's called. Like, yeah,
yeah.
it's
I'm not going to watch any of that. Like, I'm like, no, yeah, I don't like the source material enough. Speaking of spin-offs, though, I would actually rather watch. I'm watching Georgie and Mandy's First Wedding, which is the spin-off from Young Sheldon, which was the spin-off from The Big Bang Theory. And Young Sheldon, actually, the rare spin-off that was much, much better than
mm,
I have a lot of time for Young Sheldon. I think it's an excellent TV show, very underrated because I never hear anyone discuss it. I'm actually kind of into Georgie and Mandy's first wedding now, our first marriage now, and I would watch that before I'd watch Mythic Quest. I'm enjoying that now.
yeah.
A silly spin-off of a spin-off of the Big Bang Theory is now more compelling to me than Mythic Quest, and that's just a shame because the comedy DNA in that it shouldn't be that way. The
Yeah.
always sunny people behind it, it shouldn't be that way. But yeah, it's just the story ended, and you're just keeping it going for the money now, and
It
we're all
really
just
does feel
like,
like that, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Um
That's all we have anyway for the time being. Kev, I know you've got the gigs coming up. Anything else you want to plug or mention? Or anything else you're enjoying in general that you just want to give a shout out to?
what else am I enjoying at the moment? Can we talk about Spider-Man? Oh, Common Side Effects is still on by the way as well. And it's excellent if you've not seen any of it. It's on a Channel 4 app. It's not finished. I think it's another 2 or 3 episodes to go. But this show is not the show I even thought it was going to be. It's a lot more kind of twisty and turny and really, really good so far. I'm really, really enjoying it. So if you haven't checked that out, I big ol' recommend for me.
Okay. Thank you, Kev. Always a pleasure. Fangclub touring Ireland, wherever
Yes,
they are, you can get somewhere. They're gonna be they're spread out enough that they're not too far from you, no matter
it's
where
kind
you
of
are in Ireland.
every weekend in April we'll be doing something.
There you go.
So yeah,
Exciting times. So always amazing gigs. I'll always try and get out of my way to go see them and see what I can do in April. But I've got a busy April too. WrestleMania's coming up.
WrestleMania,
We
man.
got
Yeah,
WrestleMania weekend for the first time ever. It's a 10th WrestleMania party, which worked out nicely. I didn't actually know that until I actually just counted one day recently. In the Woolshed, for the first time, we're going to be doing full WrestleMania weekend. Each night, I can reveal here, is going to have a different theme as far as the party goes. We'll be kind of revealing more. We're still 5 weeks out, but now we're going to start giving you the reveals. And Jade's poster, the Last of Us team, amazing to have Jade back.
yeah.
She
Shout out to
just
Jade.
knocked it out of the park, as always. Yes, Jade Costello, absolute legend. Love loves OG. But yeah, if you haven't got that, tickets eventbrite.ie. Surprisingly, I wasn't expecting a lot of people to commit so early to the full weekend, but we're getting a lot of people who are doing the full weekend there. But you can buy individual nights if you just want to go on the Saturday or the Sunday. But it's Easter weekend, treat yourself. So there you go. Keep your eye out on Low Blows or my own socials for that. I'll be back next time with March at the movies. I'm going to be talking with Tom. We'll probably have a couple of Low Blows bits over the next month or so until WrestleMania as well. But Kev, always a pleasure to join you. Good luck with all the gigs. We'll be catching up anyway
Thanks
privately,
so
and
much,
then
man.
we'll try get time on and have some discussions around The Last of Us when you're on the other side of the tour. I've been Jer Leggett. Until next time, this has been page 180. And personally, I prefer to know who I'm dismembering.